Hi everyone, I'm Rob Flattery from the Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design, also known as RMCAD.
Today we're stepping into the world of Procreate, where we're learning how to draw type.
This fun tutorial is being made on our Wondering Pixel. This workshop on wheels is dedicated to inspiring young creatives through art and design by scheduling visits to schools and events. In this series of online workshops, the Pixel shows artists just like you the fun, simple way of creating compelling content. So come on in.
Today's workshop is being taught by our Chair of Illustrative Design, Jay Hollick. Jay is a skilled artist with a lot of knowledge to share, so listen up and enjoy.
So let's get started. So the first thing I actually did was I went into my little toolkit here. I'm going to unselect that. One of my little toolkit here, and I hit add, and I had insert photo, and I grabbed a file. I'm going to delete these. I grabbed this file and I just placed it on there. I actually had to manipulate it a little bit using my selection tool and change it, in terms of rotating and that kind of thing. So I got it to where I wanted it to, and I just placed it there. The next thing that I'm going to do is, now that I have the sketch, I always sketch first on either a piece of paper or a sketchbook. And that's just part of my process. I then scan it or photograph it and place it in here. Sometimes I do sketch on Procreate. It just depends on the project and what I'm doing. I'm going to create a new layer. And in this layer, I'm going to create some guidelines for myself. So the guidelines are just going to be there temporarily. And what I'm going to do is another function that I really like about Procreate. I'm using the Apple Pencil. And if I hold down the Apple Pencil, I'll just go back a second. That's not a perfectly straight line, but if I hold down the Apple Pencil, it goes straight. And then if I use my index finger and I hold down, it'll actually go 180 degrees. And it'll just lay that 180 right there. So it'll lay flat horizontally. I'm going to do the same down below on my baseline. And this gives me a sense of, just placement. If I need to make adjustments while I'm drawing, I can do that. The next move I'm going to make is I'm going to go into my sketch. I'm going to use that N button, and I'm just going to change the opacity down to 50%. And I'm going to do the same here as well. I'm going to change this to like 60 or something like that, 64. So I've created kind of a transparent layer so that doesn't take over, like I don't get confused by the lines and that kind of thing. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to select a new color. I'm going to select that dark purple. And then I'm going to start drawing the letter forms. I'm going to do the outlines of everything. When I start doing this, I'm going to show you one thing. I can hold my Apple Pencil down and it smooths out the form. I can also hold my index finger down and it creates a circle, which is pretty great. I can also edit the shape. I can create a circle that way, and I can manipulate it from here, these little anchor points, which is pretty great. I like the circle. I think that's great. So I'll leave it right there. Do the same here. And then I'm going to work my way through the letter forms. And again, it snaps too. If it doesn't work out the way I want it to, I can do it individually and just snap to where I need it to. It's kind of almost like Illustrator in that way, working with anchor points. But in this case, it's raster, and I'm using the Apple Pencil. And another thing that's happening here, I'll actually take the color that's the color that I have in this top right-hand corner, and I can actually fill the color, fill the shape with color, which is a really nice feature. I don't have to worry about trying to color in everything. So, and one other thing, I don't know if you guys noticed that, but we have an undo and a redo button, kind of like your Control Z or Command Z. Again, a really nice function. I spent so many years drawing, paper and pencil and using an eraser, and then moved to Photoshop and Illustrator and got used to Command Z, and now I can't get my head around not being able to use Command Z. Something else that I like about this kind of drawing is that I don't have to be perfect. And I can kind of just have fun with creating the content. And I'm going to use my eraser tool here. Erase this content out. Create some overlapping lines. Use that drag and drop function. And drag some color there. The E, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm actually, since I have two E's, I'm going to do one here. I'll draw it out, and then I'm going to copy this one and paste it to where I need it to be. I really like the iPad because it's so I can transport it anywhere. I could just take it with me and draw anywhere. It's this portable drawing studio. I almost forgot. So I'm actually going to use my freehand selection tool. I'm going to select the E right here. I'm going to copy and paste, and what that ended up doing was creating a new layer with that E. So that's great. I'm going to select that E. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to zoom out a bit. All right. I'm going to select that E. I'm going to move it. Right now I have the snapping guide. That's right on the bottom left-hand corner. I have that guide on. It's really nice to have because then I can kind of align it to where I want it to be aligned. So there we go. So that E is now aligned with that E. And that's pretty much where I want it. So I'm good there. I'm going to combine these two layers, layer 3 and from selection together and there's two different ways actually. I can click the from selection layer and then there's a merge down. I could do that. Or I can pinch from selection and layer 3 together, and that combines the two. Make sure I have the brush tool selected. There's a lot of quick movements, quick gestures that you can do with the iPad and with Procreate. One of which is if I tap my Apple Pencil twice or once, it'll actually move to the eraser tool or back to my brush tool. So just be aware. Sometimes you'll think you're on one tool and you're actually on another, just because you accidentally, at least in my case, I select it on accident. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna hide this layer and then hide layer 1 and 2. And I'm going to actually, okay, just kind of inspect, make sure I'm not missing anything. Looks good so far. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start to color in my pencils, right? So I'm going to actually go back to layer 2. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to go to layer 3. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to go hit reference down below here. What that means is that anything that I fill with color, it's going to fill in the confines of the outlines that I've already created. So if I select layer 4, I'm going to start with this orangish red. And then I'm just going to start going through and getting these colors. Sometimes I'll hit the actual outline. You'll notice when I did that, it outlines the whole shape in red. I don't want to do that. I actually just want to get that inside space, that reddish orange. Red orange? Orange red? Oops, put it in there. Sometimes I have to like zoom in a little bit in order to make sure I'm selecting the right area. There we go. All right, so that first color is down. I'm going to start on my second color. I'm going to make it this actual orange. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to start with this one. Just work my way down. All right, my third color, I'm going to do the same thing. Create a new layer. This time, I'm going to find myself a new color that's not in my already existing color palette. I'm going to go to Harmony. I'm going to go to Triadic, and I'm going to select Analogous. I'm going to select this yellow. I like that yellow, so I'm going to select that one. Use that color. Make sure I'm on the right layer. I feel like a lot of times I end up forgetting which layer I'm in. It's always important to label your layers. You don't run into that issue. You'll notice right here, I forgot to add an orange. So one thing that I can do is I can go back to that layer 5, and then using my Apple Pencil, I can select, just hold down on that color up on the top right-hand corner, and it'll select that, go back to that orange. I can fill that. Whoops. There we go. And then going back, I could go back to layer 6, hold down on that color, it goes back to the yellow. Super easy. All right, so I have those colors. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to turn off my background color. And one thing that you'll notice is that I have all this color in the pencil itself, but not in the wood elements of the pencil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make that white. I'm going to go back to my old classic color mode, and I'm going to go to the top left-hand corner there. So that's my color that I selected. And I'm just going to fill that wooden area of a pencil white. You'll notice I forgot an area again. This happens a lot. So I'll hold down my color. Sometimes I've selected a couple of colors before that, so I have to just go back into my history and find the color. Let's color that in. Go back to white, go back to my white layer. Continue filling in the color. Oh, I forgot 2 right there. Select my yellow. That one. Select my orange. Select the white. There we go. This isn't a massive file, so I can easily kind of go back from one layer to the next, but definitely if you have a lot of layers, make sure that you label them. All right, so now that's completed, and I like where that's going, so I'm good there. I'm actually going to add texture to everything. And at this point, I think layers 4, 5, and 6, I'm going to combine those because I think I could do the same texture all the way around for each of those colors. So I don't necessarily have to have those all in one layer. So I'm going to combine those by pinching them together. That's all good. And then I'm going to select this purple, maybe this purple. And then I'm going to go into my brushes, and I'm going to go to, let's see, we'll go to vintage. Yeah, vintage newsprint. I'm going to do newsprint. I'm just going to kind of experiment real quick and see what the size is. So I'm going to turn back on this. See if this is the right size for me. Right now my opacity is set to 65 and the size is set to 25. Make sure that that's not too much. Seems good. All right, I'm going to turn off my background layer, and then I'm going to create a clipping mask for layer 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new layer and hit clipping mask when I select that. So I selected layer 6, and then I can hit clipping mask. And what that'll do is it'll constrain all of my coloring to layer 4. So now I can go in and I can start to kind of paint in this texture. Right now I'm just kind of layering it. I'm not doing too much at a time. Just trying to give it some visual interest. It's not going crazy. Again, a nice thing about like the Apple Pencil is that it's it's pressure sensitive. So the harder I press down, the more it'll paint in that texture. And you'll notice it's not painting on the white. It's because it's constrained to those colors. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Let's play around with some different modes, different color modes. See what happens. I hit like multiply, not a whole lot. Let's get closer. So you can kind of see the difference it's making. Light and there's nothing. I kind of like hard light. I think that's good. And I'm going to just turn the opacity down to like 70%. It just kind of adds a little bit more to it. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do for layer 7, for those white areas, I'm going to have like a little shadow, a little kind of like three-dimensionality, create a little three-dimensionality with it. Instead of creating a clipping mask though, I'm actually going to select alpha lock here in my selection. And what that does is it constrains all of my painting to just the areas of color that are there. So in this case, it's just those areas of white. And then in my color palette, I'm going to go back to selecting white. But in this case, I'm going to select a gray. I'm just going to move this down a little bit. I'm in my classic color palette mode. And then I'm just going to go through and create a little bit of a shadow, making sure that I have my monoline brush. Make sure that's selected. We're good to go. All right. And then I'm just going to go through. I'm got to remember to turn off the reference. That happens a lot. Otherwise, it's just going to constrain my drawing to the shape, to the outline. All right. So now that I have that, maybe I just want to change the opacity down just a bit. No, that's fine. That works. All right. So I didn't change the opacity. I left it at that point. But that all works. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to combine all of these because I think, for me, there's not a whole lot of edits that need to be done at this point. Like I don't really want to remove this layer 6. I think that's working as a texture layer. And then layer 7 and layer 4, I think they're working pretty well. So what I'll do is I'll just pinch those so that they're on the same layer. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a clipping mask for this. And I'm just going to create a small gradient. just something to create a little bit more I don't know, interest. So I'm going to use the soft brush. I'm going to increase the size just a bit. Make sure that that's on the clipping mask mode. And then I'm just going to lightly start to paint over. Not doing a whole lot. And then I'm going to change the color a bit. I'm going to select that orange. I'm just going to go over the top of it from here. Create a little bit more light, dark kind of thing. Maybe I want to add a little bit of yellow there. It's kind of fun. And then what I'll do is, that's kind of intense. It's kind of, you know, maybe I want to soften that up a bit. So I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. I'm going to select layer. I'm just going to make that an easier transition. I'm going to make it like 20% Gaussian blur. And then I'm going to change the opacity down a bit. Down to 70% or so. And there we go. So yeah, it's kind of a little tutorial on how to create some letter forms in Procreate. I hope you have fun with this. I hope you actually play around with Procreate, play around with the animation side of things. That's always fun. It's a really powerful tool, something that I use quite often. And you know, it's just another piece and another tool in the arsenal, another tool in the toolbox. So thank you.
We have the project file on hand for you to download right now. Check out the link on our website or in the YouTube description to rewatch and follow along. Thanks for watching.